Hello, everybody. This is Don's Dialogue here. We have Wyatt Nye as part of the co-hosting tree here at Don's Dialogue, and we're fortunate enough to have our very first guest here, Cameron Patterson, alumni from the University of San Francisco here at the what cohort was it again here, Cameron? It was
Cohort 53.
53.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, again, just want to thank you coming in here as our first guest. And just before we get started here, just want to let everybody know just kind of what's to be expected here for future episodes and future events here at Don's Dialogue. So, here at Don's Dialogue, again, it's just a podcast we have here for sport management master students, as well as just alumni who have worked here in the industry in sport management. It's just a time to really connect our theory of practice, classroom knowledge with some of these real world scenarios here too as well, and just your exclusive pass to the inner workings of the sports industry. So again, Wyatt Nye here, and pleased to be joined here by Cam Patterson. He's an MBA personal association rights, MBPA certified player agent with Disruptive Sports Agency up in the Bay Area. He has currently over 10 years of experience within the industry and started as an intramural club supervisor here at UC Davis. Is that right?
I was. So actually, I started off as a referee before becoming a supervisor and then becoming a
Okay.
manager. So I went through the entire gambit over there at UC Davis in the intramural and competitive sports department.
Right. So did you happen to go there for your undergrad? Is that how you got introduced to UC Davis?
Yeah, so UC Davis has always been kind of part of my family. I'm a legacy. My dad was a Don. I was not a Don, was an Aggie. So he went to UC Davis back in the early '90s. So it was always something that in the back of my mind as a school that I could potentially go to. It wasn't until kind of how some college applications shake out that it became a reality that I'm like, oh, that actually might be the school for me. So got there, definitely want to stay connected to sports, stop playing basketball after high school. So I definitely want to stay connected to the game as much as possible. So started working for the intramurals and competitive sports department, as well as also working for the men's basketball team. So tried to stay and keep my foot in the sports world as much as I could.
That's perfect. Yeah. I do love hearing at least it was kind of a little bit full circle for you and your family there going to UC Davis. Again, really good Division I program too. I happen to know a few ball players that came out of my high school here at Orange Lutheran down the Trinity League. But what positions you end up playing in high school basketball?
Basically all of them. Basically all of them. I was kind of one of those kind of scrappy guys, so I could play anything. I was one of the oldest, one or two seniors my senior year. So we had a bunch of young players, super talented, a bunch of guards. So to make sure I got on the court, they put me at four and sometimes at five, just to make sure they had someone who could play defense and was smart on the court. So however you can make it work, I try to do it.
So you're 4 and 5. How tall are you, Cam? You're playing power forward
I'm
and
six
center
one.
for
6'1", so yeah, definitely
wow.
was
Okay.
6'7" people at my time. So never bothered me. Try to do whatever I can. So
Yeah, I love that. A little bit of Chuck Hayes in you too. A little Charles Barkley being able to play a 4 or 5 undersized. I love that. I love hearing that.
okay, it's a nice Bay Area reference as well.
Yeah, of course. You got to recommend the Bay too. I might be from Southern California, but I know my fair share of Bay Area legends too out there. So, um,
Gotcha.
yeah. So, just at least just knowing that you were at the University of San Francisco program, what initially got you interested post UC Davis to want to enter in USF?
So funny enough, I have someone who went to my high school who went to UC Davis. He actually played football at UC Davis, named TJ King, and he was someone I've always looked up to. Was older than me, and I saw he went to the USS Sports Management program after. And my high school, in a way, is like a feeder program to the USS Sports Management program. I could probably
Mhm.
list at least six or seven from my high school that went there. So it's always been a funny or a running joke that my high school, Bishop O'Dowd, is essentially
Mhm.
the University of San Francisco Sports Management program. So he was one of the main people that I've had a really close relationship with, and I messaged him. We got on the phone, we talked about it, and I was like, "Hey, what did you think about the program? Did you like it? Do you think it's something that I should look for in my career?" Because at the time, I was thinking I wanted to work in the NBA. So for
Yeah.
me, I wanted to make sure I got some of the educational requirements to make sure I stood out in any type of interview or any conversation that I did, and make sure I built out my network, make sure I had all the educational requirements that were done. So once that happened, once we had that conversation, I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's get jump into it. Let's get it going. So right after graduation from college, I jumped in a month later into the sports management program. So basically, didn't have a break. Went right
Wow.
through that COVID year graduation and jumped right into the sports management program.
Dang. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that was pretty sharp jump too for you. So you graduated UC Davis, was it 2019? Like, or
2020.
2020?
Yep.
2020. Okay. Wow. So right in the thick of COVID.
So I
How
didn't get a graduation. No.
wow. Yeah, it
No.
was
But it's all right. It's all right. I got
yeah.
my USF graduation, so it took care of both.
Right. And you were the first, I believe the first graduating class for when they finally returned in person, right?
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, like I mean, it brings up bad memories for me too. Like I had my undergraduate ceremony that was postponed for COVID too at USF. I went to USF my undergrad as well,
Nice. Okay.
and up in the Bay Area too. So I know that experience all too well, just being shorted that because of COVID. But that's awesome. You guys were able to do that ceremony there in St. Ignatius. Is definitely a feeling I'm chasing here in May.
Beautiful, beautiful church. Definitely a beautiful church.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to be. But awesome. I'm glad at least you had that tie-in just for joining the program too. There any kind of favorable moments, any favorable professors, people along the way that you kind of met that really stood out to you in your experience there?
Oh, there's a ton of professors or classes that I definitely um, remember as being super impactful in my journey. Obviously, you got to talk about Cellini's class. It's the first one that jumps out in the beginning. He hits you over the head really quick with making sure that you're prepared, that you have all the um, attention to detail. I think that's the biggest thing with him is attention to detail, understanding how to network better, understanding how to conduct informational interviews, and figuring out what do you want to do and how are we going to get you there. And I think that definitely sets the tone for the program. From there, obviously NOLA is always a favorite of mine.
Right.
I was a statistics major in undergrad, so when I got NOLA, it was definitely a class that I enjoyed because of my background. It was an easy transition for me, and she's super willing to listen and able to communicate effectively. So, and then Rasher's just a wealth of knowledge, and he's able to explain everything in such a high level. He can talk about the cases that he's done in his time. So, he's one of the um, people that you always look for as someone who can help you through anything that you encounter in kind of your sports career. If you have to run anything by him about, oh, maybe I want to make this decision, I want to make this career jump, I want to know a little bit more about this. Either he'll help you because he knows about it, or he'll be like, oh, you should go talk to this person. They'd be perfect for you. So he has that kind of connector in him that's super important for a lot of us who we're trying to figure out what we want to do.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there just on the two of the three. I haven't actually been able to meet Nola yet. I believe she's having somebody fill in for her, at least her course now, just with Halvax. So I'm fortunate enough to have Halvax who's helped lead at least the business research project and whatnot too. And obviously, you hit the nail right on the head there with Cellini. He's that coach that's the perfect. Honestly, I would dare say like it's the mini boot camp there
Yeah,
that you get all started in trying to not necessarily weed people out, but just honestly having that, like you said, attention to detail, the right preparation, just leading into each and every class as well as just your career too. So I love the insight you had to share about those professors. I know, at least for me, I'm looking forward to just in May here we have Cellini now hosting his own very class that's outside of the boot camp course, a media course that's not
interesting.
just offered in the Bay Area. So it's going to be a good little full circle moment there. Just starting with this course and then just finishing off there too as well. Like in April, I'm very excited about it too.
All
He,
right,
him as well as Rasher, like you said, just amazing influences there in the program and honestly a perfect branch to other people.
for sure, for sure, definitely wealth of knowledge. All of them have a wealth of knowledge that they can bring along. So super cool.
Yeah.
super valuable
Definitely.
resources for anybody that's in the program.
Right. Yeah. I'd have to agree with you there. So I also did just want to kind of get into what initially pulled you into wanting to be an agent. Was that kind of your first intention when you were joining the program post undergrad, or?
No, so going back, so got to undergrad and I wanted to actually do engineering. So I was starting as a mechanical engineering was kind of the path. So I was taking all of those calculus, physics, chemistry on
Hmm.
that path. Finished out that year, and I spent some time doing talking to some people within industry. And I went and shadowed at a consulting engineering firm in San Francisco. I went and spent the day with them and was talking to them, figured out what they did, sat, watched them, and I was like, I couldn't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I couldn't. So from there, it really was how do I figure out how do I stay within my passion, something that I'm really interested in doing for the rest of my life, but also was within my skill set, and I can definitely see myself having an impact. I think that's the biggest thing is you want to be able to put impact and passion together to make sure that you have something that you think you can do for the rest of your life. You never know where that pivot's going to happen because everything we all pivot at some point, we all switch careers, but at least for the foreseeable future, do you know what that's going to be that career for you? So for me, dove right back into sports. Started working for the UC Davis men's basketball team. When I was there, I was started basically as a team manager, so kind of doing a lot of the grunt work,
Hmm.
intel, ball boy, rebounding, passing. But it got me my foot in the door a little bit. So once I did that, I said, hey, I want to kind of move on. What's the next step? I really this is not what I see myself doing. I want to start to learn video. I want to do stats, something. How can I get more responsibility? So they allowed me to basically be to do video coordinator work for them. So essentially, I did cut practices as well as games in their uh, film. So I did all the film, the practices and games, and it gave me a lot of good experience to understand. Okay, this is what the back end of the basketball program will look like. This is how the video works. So from there, I was like, okay, what's next? What's next? I did that for my next 2 years, and then it was time to graduate. COVID happened,
Man.
and I'm starting to figure out where am I going to go. I want to work in the NBA. I want to potentially work either in data analytics or scouting or something along those lines. So from there, I was tried to get an internship with the Kings, and the Kings said, "No, we can't even interview you." I was like, "Why not? Why can't I get an
Wow.
interview?" And we usually only hire graduate students. Okay, now cool. That's what the next step is for me. So my next step was going and getting a graduate degree. So I'll go to University of San Francisco, start working there, and after I get through Cellini's course, I started figuring out data analytics wasn't what I wanted to do. I think for the most part, how at least it was shared with me is that data analytics within the NBA or within a lot of those different spaces, there's a lot of just spending your time behind a laptop, doing
Yeah.
either coding or analyzing numbers without a lot of the interpersonal relationship. And I felt that wasn't really where I thought my value was. I didn't feel like my role was to sit behind a computer in a corner and say, hey, do these numbers, give it to me, and I may or may not use it. And that
Hmm.
it didn't sit right with me. So from there, I moved and I said, okay, let's think more scouting. Let's think more front office, player personnel. I think the path is probably get to GM. Now, for me, now I hear so often I want to be a GM, and I feel so naive looking back on how I was then, thinking, oh yeah, I want to be a GM. I think GM is the next step for me. But at that time, you don't know what's not attainable. And I'm
Right.
not saying it's not attainable, but I'm saying you're one of basically everybody who ever wants to work in the NBA who thinks that they want to be a GM. There's only 30 of them with now two expansion teams, so there'll probably end up being 32. But still, at that point, that's not a large crop to be. So
Yeah, that's
with that,
definitely a good point.
have to work and find some other way of providing value and figuring out what do you want to do. So from there, I need internship hours. So obviously you're in the program, you know you need internship hours. What am I going to do? How am I going to get these hours done? So disruptive, obviously sent in their data research and client services internship to the program, and I got that, and I was like, I want to work in the NBA. I want to think about being a GM sometime. What better way to learn more about the sports space than to see the agency side, so I can get both sides of the coin. If I know what the agent's thinking, then now if I get to the team side, I have a better understanding of what they're looking for in terms of how do they want to value players, or how do they want to um, think about certain scenarios, so that I can play devil's advocate when I'm on the other side. So I thought that was valuable. I got to Disruptive, and within the first 3 months, it was a great time. I got to do a
Hmm.
lot of data research. I think the first month I jumped right into free agency, and I had Kendrick Bourne, who became a free agent,
Wow.
and he was about to get a new contract, and we needed a comp for what his next contract would be. And I started looking at some numbers and started uh, looking at past contracts for wide receivers similar to him. And I said, okay, this is probably about what he's going to get. That's the exact number he got with the Patriots. And
Wow.
that basically showed I have the kind of the mental aspect of it, but my passion is football. I mean, not football. My passion is basketball, but not football. So if my passion is basketball, basketball has easier numbers. So their numbers, how they do contracts, it's a lot more guaranteed numbers,
Hmm.
not voidable years like in football. There's not all these different aspects of the football game.
Franchise tag, whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much less that I got to worry about. They also have an easier test in the NBA. So I was like, let me just focus on basketball. The only thing about basketball that's harder is it's harder to recruit players and get them because it's a lot less. But that was within the first 3 months. I said, hey, let's start working for. Let's start thinking about it. That's what they asked me. They said, hey,
Hmm.
let's start thinking about you becoming a basketball agent. We got a couple kids we want to recruit. I think you'd be the perfect person to do it. I took a couple minutes. I said, I don't know about that. It took about 3 or 4 months from there for me to make my decision. And what happened was I went to summer league. I came back and I had a conversation with the Warriors, the Santa Cruz Warriors. They said, hey, we're going to interview for this position. And I said, cool. So when you get back from summer league, we'll have this conversation. We'll see if you get an interview for this position. So all right, cool, perfect. I get back. I don't hear anything. I message them. Hey, we decided to move in a different direction. You're not going to get an interview. So all right, cool. I'm going to go be an agent. And I think
Wow.
everything has just been kind of moved forward since there. I haven't looked back at all.
Wow. I mean, that is kind of like a blessing in disguise too. Like a disguise, like a little bit of a delay there too. Obviously, you had, I think, the right choice at least by going into weighing out your decision, just kind of before you ventured into that. It's I can imagine too your schedule and the recruiting process like you had too. It's got to be a weighted position. Would you say so yourself?
Super. It's a super
Yeah.
difficult position. That's why when anyone ever calls me, and I'll take any call, anybody who ever says, "Hey, I want to be an agent. Can I ask you questions? Like, how do I go about it?" I'll always answer those calls, or if you message me and I have that conversation, I'll always be open to the conversation. But I'm also never gonna BS somebody and give them a false hope for what this
Yeah.
business. I've been working in the business over 2 years, and I don't have any NBA clients as of right now, and that's the norm. Any
Hmm.
agent that's ever worked in the business will tell you it takes you at least 3 years to get your first NBA client, and that's just on average.
Wow.
A lot of people it takes longer. Some people get lucky and it's shorter, but it all depends on what context you come into it with. Whether you have the right network already in place, maybe you have that close friend that you played with in high school that's ready. Like, hey, you want to be my agent? Sure. And you have it very. I wouldn't say lucky, but you were in an opportune situation where
Hmm.
it was able to be ready made for you. Some people just don't have that luck, and I think there's a lot of it's okay to not have that luck, but it's you have to be able to uh, be in the rooms, network, meet the right people,
Hmm.
and be able to within 2 3 minutes explain why you bring value to the person in front of you. And that could be a
Yeah.
GM, that could be a scout, that could be a high school coach, that could be an AU coach, that could be the kid and their parents. You have to be able to explain in within 2 3 minutes why they should listen to you, or they're gonna all shut down and not listen anymore. And now your opportunity is gone. So it's a very
Right.
difficult space to be in, and that's why I, I don't take it lightly when I say that I'm an agent. I try to say that I'm doing because I feel like I spend every day with that goal in mind and that fortitude that comes with it. Because it takes a lot of mental discipline to hear no every day.
Definitely, definitely. I'm sure you've had your fair share with that too. And like you said, I mean, taking at least 3 years on average just to be able to get a NBA player, I mean, it makes sense. The NBA is like the hardest league to really make a name for yourself in any professional league in the world. Like it'll tell you that with only 30 teams, you got 15 roster spots on each team, and
Yep.
that'll even include like a two-way guy, or right, like you have the G League, but um, have you have you at least had other chances to look at? Like I know there's some other minor leagues too in the U.S. There's the TBL, there's ABA that's still up and running too as well. I know they have some overseas teams too as well that's affiliated with the U.S. So what's kind of your process like, at least in terms of looking to recruit clients, whether it's in basketball or kind of any other part of that agency?
For sure. I think our agency, we're currently a boutique agency, which is by boutique, it just means smaller by amount of money that we operate with, as well as the
Yeah.
standing. I think that's in terms of boutique is what we operate with. But at the end of the day, we see ourselves growing into one of the larger agencies and being able to compete with them for any client. That's the goal at the end of the day, and we're building towards that. Now, at the end of the day, we have to work with what we have, and I
Right.
do have a lot of connections, and I already do work with overseas players. I work with players, but at the end of the day, I for me, my interest is helping them because for those players, I don't help players or I don't recruit players to go overseas. That's not my goal because
Mhm.
I it's not the type of player that I'm going for. Now, at the end of
Right.
the day, I love the players that I work with because I've known them for a very long time, or they've been vouched for from someone who I truly respect and needs help. And that for me is where the purpose comes in, where,
Hmm.
okay, I'm helping someone who's trying to reach their goal. Now, at the end of the day, I'm doing it off the strength of the relationship that I have with that player or with the person that vouched for them because there's not a lot of money in it. For a lot of the
No.
guys that I work with, they're playing for maybe $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month. That and the max percentage for overseas is 10%. So if it's $10,000 a month, you're making $1,000 a month for a 9 month season. You made $9,000. At the end of the day, it's not really anything that
No.
barely covers any costs. So for them, that's a living. Like you made $10,000 a month, 9 months, 90K. You lose 9,000, so you 81. That's net. You net 81. I think that's a pretty good lie because the taxes are already accounted for overseas. So everything that
True.
is paid is net. The team pays for taxes, so it doesn't even worry about it. So if you net 81, then you're good. That's a pretty good. You playing the game you love and you make a good
Yeah.
81,000. I think like you feeling good about yourself. For me, I made 9,000, and that's a split with the agency and myself. So at the end of the day, for the amount of work that I did I get the value? Debatable. But for me, the purpose is why I work with these guys. It's because I want
Hmm.
to be able to continue their career. At the end of the day, the goal for us is to build us into a large scale agency that is able to work with first overall picks. We want to work with all stars. We want to work with all NBA players. And I think that's said from my side as well as the football side. The football side would say the exact same thing. The goal is to work
Right.
with Pro Bowl players, all pros, guys that are going first round. That's the goal. And I think most agents would say that's their goal too. Now, it may just not be a reality based off the network that you have or the context of where you work in, or maybe it isn't your interest. But for a majority of them, if they had a first round pick in their sights, they wouldn't turn it down and say, "Nah, I'm good." I think most of them would at least try,
Absolutely.
even
Absolutely.
with the headaches that can come with it. That's the one
Yeah.
reason that overseas players might be a little bit better, is because a lot of the headaches don't come with it, and that's a lot of the exterior things that make the game or the agent space very slimy or difficult to deal with.
Yeah. What I mean, just to kind of delve a little bit more into that too. I know we have at my cohort, our program that we have, a lot of students, much like you, who they either come in without that ambition and eventually turn into becoming an agent, or some of those too that they come in thinking they're going to be the next Jerry Maguire, of course, and everyone's going to be all hand down them golden spoon, you name it. Like you've seen that fair share of students too who
Yeah.
that's their main goal. And at certain times, I'll say like the program tries to have you veer a little bit in and out of those kind of mindsets and trying to open your horizons up to other kind of lanes of that too. So what would be at least that first bit of advice in terms of what you need to be cautionary of in the agency space? Maybe red flags that might stand out, but then also some of those positives that kind of outweigh that could lead other students into kind of your path that you've had.
Well, the first thing I'll say is obviously anyone that's taken Cellini's class, he said don't be an agent.
Right.
That's the first. And I was in that cohort, and I was in my class, and he said it to our class. There was like 3 people that said they wanted to be agents. He told them not to be agents, and what did those 3 people do? Not become agents. What the person that didn't raise his hand, he became an agent. So at the end of the day, do what you want to do what you set forth to do, and don't let anyone tell you can't do something. But
Mm-hmm.
me, it's why do you want to do it? A lot of the agents that I know didn't want to become agents. Someone wanted them to become an agent.
Mm.
And that was either an agency, that was either a player, that was a parent. Someone came up to them and told them, hey, I want you to become an agent, which is what got them into it. That's what a lot of the best agents have done. So I would say Henry, who I think you guys are doing an interview with as well,
Right.
our founder at Disruptive Sports, he was told, if you were my agent, my career would have been much longer than it was. That's what got his start. So I was
Wow.
told to be an agent because I didn't want to be an agent. Nobody that I know that are actually in the game who've been agents, they didn't grow up wanting to be an agent because this isn't what we wanted to do. I don't know. There's something about that I don't completely get. But for me, when I ask, why do you want to be an agent? And if the goal is, I want to make sure to take care of players' money. Well, there are a lot of ways you can take care of a player's money. You can be their manager, you can be their
Mm-hmm.
financial advisor, you can work in marketing because they need someone to take care of the marketing deals. You can be a lawyer and work and manage their money. There's a lot of ways you can manage a player's money. I want to be in and around players. There's a lot of ways to be around players. There are so many people that are
Yeah.
in the circle of a player that they need to thrive with. There's a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, I tell people, if you want to work with a player, just go be the best at anything, and you can work with players. You can go run a furniture company, and if you have the best damn furniture company in the country, you're gonna work with players because they're gonna say, I want your furniture in my house.
Yeah.
So if
100%.
you think about that in every single type of space, whether it's you want to be an accountant or CPA, you have this sports drink company, anything you can work with players. You just got to get to the right player. Once they endorse it, then you can get to the next one. And that's kind of how it works. So for me, I always think about, okay, what's your reasoning behind it? Because there's a lot of ways that you can manufacture that same thing without having as cutthroat of a business because you can only have one agent,
Yeah.
but you can have multiple of everything else. You can only have one agent, and our value is only 2 NBA players. You can work with overseas players, but the money here just really isn't there. So if you're only working with NBA players, there's 450 NBA players, and 20% of the agents represent 80% of those players. So
My goodness.
800 certified agents. So it's already a 2-to-1 ratio as it is, agents
Mm-hmm.
to players. So the odds just already aren't in your favor, and there's new agents coming every day. The number of agents is increasing, not decreasing. So there's
Mm-hmm.
more people coming, so it's only going to get harder. But I think in every other space, even if you're not working with players, you can still make money by working with people outside the sports industry to then get to the making the money to work with athletes. So if you want to be a financial advisor, you can go work with the guy in tech and help his money before you go help the athletes. I know the athletes is the goal, but you can still make money. From us, you don't make money if you don't have an NBA player under contract. And that's
Yeah.
the tough part of the space.
Definitely understand, yeah, how it could be a little bit more difficult to try and win somebody over like that too, and then obviously being the main representative of them too. Uh,
Yeah.
I I know Cellini has compared it in the past at least to kind of more of a babysitting role, but how would you like kind of coin with that term? What's kind of the feel for you on a day to day being an agent of a player?
So being an agent of a player, you have to view yourself like a primary care physician. I use this
Right.
analogy all the time. There was someone who used it. I'm forgetting who I first heard it from. So apologies if they ever see that I this every time. But how what I use is primary care physician. So when you have a
Mhm.
problem, you go to your primary care physician, and they could be for anything. You hit your head, your knee hurts, you have a foot problem. You're gonna go to a different person for each of those issues. If you have a head, you might go go to a brain surgeon. If cut your head open, you need surgery. Your heart hurts, cardiologist. You get an eye issue, then you go into optometry. So there's someone that we're sending you to each time there's a problem. So the analogy now is, okay, you have a money problem. Make sure you get a financial advisor. Your taxes are up. You need your CPA. Okay,
Mhm.
you have a law issue. We have lawyers that make sure that's all taken care of. So everything is all taken care of in every way, shape, or form. If you need to get training done, you go to a new city, you need a new trainer, we make sure we can get you a trainer. You need a nutritionist, we call the best dietitian in the country. You need surgery, we go call the best doctor to make sure you get the right surgery or second opinion on that injury. So for us, it's making sure we have the most tight knit network so that when anything comes up, whether it's big or small, we can take
Mhm.
care of it and make sure that you're taken care of and you feel like, cool, I didn't have to do anything. At the end of the day, all I had to do was focus on basketball because at the end of the day, that's what makes both of us money.
Right.
Not to think of it in a transactional way, but just in a literal sense. If their money decreases, so does ours because it's a
Yeah.
percentage. So we try to make sure they make the most money, but it also helps because that's how we earn a living at the end of the day.
Of course. Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense too. And I like that analogy you have of the primary care physician there too, being almost the main facilitator of every branch for that player too. I know that that comes with a ton of responsibility, but I mean it's in a sense like I wouldn't think of it as cutthroat because if your focus isn't primarily on the money, but really just for them as well as the agency, I mean that's with any job. I mean you're there representing the company, you're there being a valuable asset to the company, being an invaluable employee, whatnot. So it's in a sense it's a very glorifying position, right? It might not be on pen and paper and for those living it in and out every single day like you do, but I think for people on the outside to see that they're like, oh well, he gets to be at the game, he gets to travel with her and him just going every bit way. But no, it's really at the end of the day it's the biggest hand in hand like gigantic kind of amassed amount of responsibility, I think, for any position in the sports industry. So I have a lot of respect for agents and obviously a lot of respect for you, Cameron, just going through that process.
For sure. You wouldn't know how many red eyes I've been on this year. I've probably been on over 100 flights this year. So yeah, it,
Oh my gosh.
it can be a lot.
Yeah, for some of that, like, is your would you say your schedule it's all reliant on the athlete too? Like, it's all reliant on just like kind of quick snap decisions. Like, you just kind of pick up and go and live in a suitcase. How's that
Uh,
kind of like travel schedule for you?
a lot of times I do feel like I live in my suitcase,
Yeah.
but for the most part, if you're not recruiting, you're kind of going backwards. So
Hmm.
I travel right now more to recruit than I do for any of my current players. I think a lot of my players are local, so at that point, I don't do it as much. My coaches' clients, I travel a bit for them. Like I have one in Alabama, so I go see him at least once a year. We got a couple, we got one, picked up a lot of new ones. One in Mississippi, another in Idaho. So I'll have to travel a little bit more this year for my coaches. But
Hmm.
for players, I'm always recruiting. So I got to, and that's the biggest thing is you have to recruit three levels when you're recruiting. You got to recruit high school, you got to recruit college, you got to recruit NBA. So if you're not recruiting all three of them, then you're probably not going to get one of those three. So
Yeah.
that's the goal, is to be able to be at those events. But being at high school events, college events, and NBA events has now basically tripled your amount of travel than probably what was necessary for just one of them. So if you're just doing college, you probably could travel a little bit less. But being at the high school events makes it a little bit harder too, because there's always a high school event.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, too, you being local in the Bay Area, there's so many high schools, there's so much like pools of talent in basketball, football, you name it. I mean, you have the football gods up there with De La Salle too. I mean, obviously your high school is very um, prestigious too with basketball. I've heard of Bishop O'Dowd as well as Archbishop Mitty, all those schools out around there in the Bay too. So
Yeah.
like definitely a lot of great company in terms of talent too, whatnot too.
Mhm.
So yeah, it is definitely a fortuitous schedule. I couldn't imagine going through it, but again, like just like kind of goes back to what Cellini shows too with like working in sports. It's gonna be a lot of those long hours, long days, and there's no time schedule going off of, no clock you're looking at. Like it's just living in it.
Yep. It's a
Yeah.
thankless job at the end of the day. And
Hmm.
you don't do it for the praise, you do it because you want to take care of your clients. And there's going to be days that you work 24 hours. Like I'll be flying, I'll do a red eye, I'll go right into an event, then I'll go out that night because I got to talk to a parent or an AAU coach or
Hmm.
something out at a bar or wherever is that. So now I've been up for 24 hours and I'm running off coffee and adrenaline. So it,
Yeah,
you have those days and you kind of take them and try to sleep it off the next day or whenever you can get some shut eye, but you kind of figure it out.
definitely. Well, I will say it definitely helps like having that high school basketball player kind of mindset. Just basketball in general. I mean, it's nonstop, right? It's a game of runs. It's a game of fast breaks, and just like that in agency, like you can have an amazing week. You think you have a great lead going into. You have a client that maybe might be ready to sign on the dotted line too, and then other weeks it's just almost like you're always selling yourself. You're always pitching, always finding a way to close it. And the down weeks you're doing it, and the money weeks like that you're still doing it. It's just keeping and maintaining that same process too. So it fits hand in hand with the game of basketball. I know at least that for me too. Like growing up, obsessing over basketball and kind of applying down here in Southern California a little bit of that like Mamba mentality with everything is
Yeah,
never finding a way to quit and whatnot. I mean, it's something that's necessary in working in sport. And
sure.
again, as glorified as it can be, right? Like it's one of those things. Unless you're really in sport and know that kind of mindset to apply, it's going to look different for those on the outside. That those who might be envious on the outside, like, wow, Cam, he gets to travel and go to all these high school games. He gets to talk players overseas, and he gets to be so in the inner workings of basketball. But at the end of the day, that person that's cheering for you in the sideline through all that, like damn well they want to be able to like walk in your shoe with that too.
For sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that far to say that, but they see the glitz and they don't see the hard work or
Yeah.
the long hours that were put in to get there. So, um, and that, I think that's with anything. I think that's with the social media era that we live in now. We
Yeah.
see a lot of we put out the best of what we're going through, and we never see the downsides or the back end of what everyone's going through. Everyone's putting on a persona. Everyone's kind of uh, has that almost personality that they put it for the world. So
Yeah.
anyway, I think that's for us, for me especially, because I feel as an agent, you're always pitching yourself. You're always representing yourself, your brand, your agency. So if you ever kind of put out something that is off brand or doesn't uh, make someone want to sign you, then should you be putting it out? So I think that's
Yeah.
how I operate with my social media, or even how I operate in podcasts or in person or in public. If I wouldn't feel comfortable with a recruit's parents seeing me post it or do it, then I probably shouldn't be doing it then.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah. I mean, you're not just a face for the brand too, but you're a face for yourself. Building your own personal brand is the biggest thing, whether you're
Sure.
an agent or not too. So yeah, I love that insight you have. Just kind of based on just always making sure you're doing the right decisions, not just for others around you, but yourself, most importantly, as you continue to go through too. But, you've already achieved a lot in such a short time and short order. So definitely something to be proud of, I'm sure, just going on from, you know, the Bay Area school to even just being part of Disruptive. And I'm sure Henry's had a lot to share with you along that way too, some different insights as well. But again, just we're glad we've had that chance to get to talk to you, just get a little bit of that insight just from an agent's perspective too. What, at least for knowing that we're working in such a space that can be draining, or it can be so, again, just fortuitous in a way that there's so many different responsibilities, so many different days you put your blood, sweat, and tears in it. What kind of helps keep your peace? Like, what are some different hobbies you end up, or any other interests that kind of keep your peace or sanity throughout that process?
For sure, it's always trying to find ways to decompress. I think you have days where you may get a lot of no's, or someone won't return your phone calls. There's a lot of those things, so it's really easy to kind of get pent up and feel so much emotion, or a lot of uh, that energy that comes with that. So trying to find ways to decompress. I love to work out. I'm always lifting. I love to play basketball still, so I try to play basketball at least twice a week. Help me with that. Just kind of staying active. Spending time with my family. I think that's super important to me. Making sure that I spend time with them just kind of keeps me grounded. It makes me
Yeah.
make sure that I don't ever try to get a big head or stay overly confident in some instances. So I think that also is super important to me. And then finding other ways to, uh, I think, put things in perspective is kind of the other major importance to me. So I love to read. I love to listen to podcasts, watch movies or TV shows about other entrepreneurs, because I think it puts me in the mind frame of what they went through and understand how they were able to push through times like mine. And I think, obviously, from the outside looking in, it looks very successful, but I think there's so much more that I've strives for, so that I view where I'm at as just a stepping stone. So
Yeah.
always strive for more, seeing what's next. How do I get there? So I love to look at what they did and how they overcame some of their early maybe missteps or early phases to get to where they were. And that could be anybody from tech entrepreneurs to um, even sports entrepreneurs. So anyone in the space, I love to kind of learn as much about them as I can, to just get to learn more. I think as I learn more, I'll grow as an agent.
Oh, certainly, yeah. And I mean, it takes to build off kind of the experience of others too, just being a sponge, like you said, being able to kind of not necessarily just replicate their different parts of the process or their experiences too, but honestly just gaining a little bit of that wisdom applied day to day. I mean, we use that with our courses, right? With day to day work that we've had. Like I would say I believed I had some confidence in myself going into sport, but it really, really got just solid foundation after actually like being working in a professional organization, and then just having those different influences at the grad program. Like I definitely would not be in the position I'm in without it.
Yeah.
So just having those different mentors to reach out to too, and a lot of their different connections throughout the program, as well as just people in the office every single day. Like I'm sure you had a chance. It's so necessary. It's so extensively helpful just to be able to just listen to others and just be able to apply that day in and day out. But yeah, I'm glad that you at least have, at least during that process, some different ways to decompress, knowing how stressful it could be as a whole. But, just kind of going a little bit further away from that, just wanted to ask, just as a basketball fan in general, that I could kind of already read from yourself, you are too. Who would be at least your all-time starting five? We had to go position. What's a team you throw out there on the hardwood here?
Okay, all time starting five. That's crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna do some biased, some unbiased. Um,
Fair.
but since it's my starting five, I can do whatever I want. Um,
Exactly.
Obviously, I got to throw in Jordan. Jordan's gonna be my starting two. I just have to. I think he's the greatest player that's ever played. So I'm having him at my two. Putting Steph at the 1. Steph, obviously being a Bay Area native, he turned around my favorite team from $7 tickets and worst team in basketball to the most expensive most valuable team in
Mhm.
NBA. So um, he's done a lot for the Bay Area, done a lot for Oakland. So I have to throw him in at my point guard. 3, I have to put the best 3 that's ever played. We'll put LeBron at 3. Um, he's done so much for the game, most points overall. So I put him at my 3. Ooh, now we're getting who's my 4, who's my 5. It's a really good question. Wow. Um, my 5, I'm putting Shaq just for fun.
Mm.
I think that would just be a fun guy to put at the 5. I'm talking before he put on a couple of those pounds at the end.
Yeah.
Talking
Yeah.
early Jack, like first second year of the Lakers, or maybe in the last year of Magic, like one of those
Hmm.
Shaqs. Uh, then my 4 man, who's my 4? Who do I want to put the 4? This is
Like that
actually
that
really tough.
that's
I've
your
never.
position though, man. Like who'd you try to mimic your game off
Hey, that's
of
not my.
a little bit?
That was my fourth position. That is not what I played.
Yeah.
I played pickup
It's very
today,
good
and I'm
pleasure.
a point guard. Give me the ball and get
Yeah.
out the way.
Yeah.
We'll throw Timmy in there.
Timmy, yeah.
We'll throw Tim Duncan in there at the 4. I just big fundamental. Can't go wrong.
Hmm. No, I definitely can't go wrong. I mean, the wins speak for themselves too. Like he's
Yeah.
again a thick and thin, like championship mold kind of guy. I think like I'd say like he doesn't have like the killer mentality that shows out, but I think in the inside he definitely did. I think he for sure did. It showed out too.
I'm about to say all my players got at least 3 rings. At least
At
4
least
rings. At least
true.
4 rings. All of them got at least 4 rings. So yeah, I got a pretty strong lineup there.
Definitely. I knew as a Bay Area guy too. You're gonna plug Curry in there. It makes sense though. I mean, it's undeniably the best shooter of all time too. Already passed up Reggie. Already passed up Ray. I mean, Clay's obviously a great kind of co-partner in that Splash Brothers group too. But no, Curry, he's the new mold of the NBA players. I'm sure you've seen that change too. Being
Yeah.
first like an inside game too. Now everything's just quick and shoot early and shoot often from the perimeter. Like it's undeniable. I'm a Laker fan myself, so I hold a lot of bias in this question. Um, I'd still throw in there at the 1. I mean, shoot, you had a lot of size in there in the 4 or 5, but I like big guards honestly. Like I would put,
You're going Magic.
I gotta go MJ. I gotta go MJ at the 1. I'm like, I wish I could throw Curry in there, but it'd be the best six man of all time. Just he's coming off the bench there. Um,
I got you.
Yeah, I got to throw MJ in there. Obviously, the other MJ, Michael Jordan, he's going in at the 2. I got to agree with you there too. I got to say the best player of all time. I know that this is going to ruffle a lot of feathers here too. My young group of cohort and other cohorts across and other that I graduated, everybody's riding LeBron too. I respect it. He's done a lot for the change of the NBA too, but no, I'm going to have to say MJ too. The 3, like again, like if I'm just going like game on the line too, like I have the facilitator and MJ at the 1 already. I'm gonna throw Kobe in at the 3 over Bron. I got MJ passing the rock already. So
Right.
throw Kobe at the 3.
Laker bias.
4, what yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my Laker bias for sure. Laker bias for sure.
I got you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The 4, man, like I wanna put in Timmy D in the group too, but man, there is Timmy D, but at the end of the day, I love Kevin Garnett's like energy. Like Kevin Garnett, like again, those prime years in Minnesota, taking a franchise, the one of the youngest expansion franchises in the league at this moment too. Coming straight out of high school as well too. Like I'd put KG in there at the 4. Also, just for his defense too. Like Timmy's great fundamentals and whatnot, but KG could clamp up some guys too
For
at the
sure.
4.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And then at the 5, easily one of the best scorers of all time. They had to change all the rules in after him too. One of the fastest 7'2" guys in the league. Like obviously now we're seeing Wemby's got some speed to him, but obviously you don't have a lot of the weight, a lot of the strength in the paint quite yet. So I'm gonna have to throw in Wilt there at the 5. Like Wilt for sure, one of the biggest change makers of the game next to Curry too in terms of like evolution of the game, whatnot. Like those being afraid going into the paint. So yeah, I have to
I was
throw in Wilt at the 5.
expecting Kareem.
Oh, that kind of comes with Laker bias as well. I was thinking Kareem too, but like, who's going to be the more exciting pick? Who's going to be the guy that like, again, those might fear a little bit more in the paint? Yeah, Kareem, he had some of his days too. Prime Kareem, you got Milwaukee and obviously early Lakers year as well. But man, again, as a Warriors fan too, you got to respect the Wilt pick, man. Like
Got you.
Wilt as well. Wilt as well. Obviously just one of the most dynamic players of all time. So
For sure. For sure. No, I
yeah,
respect it. I respect the lineup, so I can't argue with it. I can't argue with
yeah.
it.
For sure. And I know I'm leaving Braun and Curry off that, so people are gonna be looking at me a little bit sideways. But hey, as a true baller too, like that's what I look for. It's like that killer mentality, like the proven winning aspect, the clutch mentality, and those who can really just work both sides of the floor for sure.
It's definitely an old school lineup, so a
Yeah.
lot of the new school fans might not vibe with it, but rock with it. It's cool.
That's true. It's an old school mentality for sure too. Definitely old school mentality. But again, Kim, just want to thank you for just taking the time just to come on here, the Don's Dialogue, being our debut guest here too. Also being that like beautiful pivot we're gonna have in between now, going on to our next guest with Henry Oregon here too. But thank you for sharing all your insights about being an agent here. Just a little bit about your time here at the University of San Francisco, as well as your time there at UC Davis. A little bit of that transition before you became an agent, but again, thank you so much for coming on here, Cam. Is there any way we could kind of plug some of your social media? Anything you kind of got going on here with Disruptive? Anything we could kind of wrap up the podcast here with?
For sure, for sure. You can find me on social media, Instagram, Cameron D. Patterson, Twitter, Cam D. Patterson. If you ever want to reach out, you can reach out to me on either of those platforms. And if you want to connect, talk about anything, feel free. Be on the lookout. We'll make some noise within the next couple of years. So hopefully you'll see some of our signings soon. So follow
Definitely.
Disruptive Sports uh, for any updates on who we signed. So looking forward to some exciting new ones.
Yeah. So everybody, just stay tuned in. Disruptive here. We'll throw those links in there, just post production here as well, and we're going to be throwing up a little bit more of these Don's Dialogue episodes here every couple of weeks. So obviously, you guys were fortunate enough to have Cam here for the first ever episode, but we'll be throwing a lot more of those up there on social media, on Instagram with the Sports Marketing Association, as well as our Don's Dialogue podcast. We're going to be having there on social media, as well as on YouTube. LinkedIn, we'll be throwing those on there as well, and probably be looking at a few other platforms. So just stay tuned. But again, thank you guys for tuning in here to the Don's Dialogue, and stay tuned for some of those next guests. Appreciate it, Cameron.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
No problem. No problem.